Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
Hello, filthy movie lovers. My name is Gentry Austin.
And I'm Casey Scott.
And we're the hosts of the Sin Syndicate, film podcast for something weirdos, anti-criterion bros, and Joseph Sarno aficionados. Join us semi-weekly as we peer into the adults-only theaters and sticky-floored cinemas of the golden age of sexploitation, when the morals were loose, the laws were murky, and the intercourse was all simulated. Find us now on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Are you a film fan who loves the ultimate home video experience? Look no further than The Disconnected. Your host, Ryan Verrill, is your go-to source for the latest and most accurate information on home video releases, exclusive interviews with industry insiders and filmmakers, and has established a thriving community where every film and physical media enthusiast feels welcome. From hidden gems to blockbuster hits, The Disconnected brings you insider knowledge and a welcoming space to share your love of cinema. Watch every Thursday night at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific for the live announcements show, and follow The Disconnected on social media to stay updated. Subscribe to The Disconnected on YouTube or on the podcast provider of your choice, and dive into a world where every movie night is an adventure.
Police Squad in color. Starring Leslie Nielsen. Also starring Alan North. And Rex Hamilton as Abraham Lincoln. Tonight's special guest star, Lorne Greene. Tonight's episode, The Broken Promise.
Welcome to From the Files, a Police Squad in color. I'm your host, Mike White. Joining me is, of course, Mr. Chris Sashu.
You should call me the assassin formerly known as Zazu Pitts.
And, of course, along with me is Mr. Mark Begley.
I am not an animal. I was looking for my quote. I'm like, what did I write down?
On tonight's episode, we are talking about A Substantial Gift. It is the first episode of Police Squad, the sadly short-lived series from David Zucker, Jim Abrams, and Jerry Zucker, the team known as ZAZ. This one originally aired March 4th, 1982. I will be harping on these air dates because these were not aired in order. You can go ahead and just suck it, Firefly fans, because this show was played all out of order. And if memory serves, they moved it around channels and times as well. They wanted to kill this show pretty much right out of the gate. They just said, people didn't get it, I don't think.
You had to pay attention, and that's not what TV viewers like to do, apparently, according to TV executives.
Tonight's special guest star, Lorne Greene, though in the script for A Substantial Gift, it is William Conrad, but he will show up in the 6th episode. I guess they were trying to figure out who they were going to get to show up as those special guests. And of course, Rex Hamilton. Rex Hamilton as Abraham Lincoln. Basically, we are starting off in Jokeland from the very first shot of this series, which I fucking love. So I won't keep saying that throughout the entire thing, because if we didn't love this show, we wouldn't be talking about it.
Yes, the jokes start with the credits. I mean, and continue through the end credits. That'll just like an airplane. If you miss them, watch it again and catch the ones you missed.
There are still jokes all the way to this day that I was still catching. Yeah, I've seen this. I don't even know how many times, because I remember I watched this originally when it aired. I think I watched pretty much every episode the first time when they aired, even though they were hard to find and hard to see. This was one of those shows that was just kind of burned into my brain, where even watching again last night, there were so many lines that I was able to say before they were saying them on screen. Of course, we're going to talk about how a lot of the stuff was recycled for Naked Gun, which we've all have seen, but these jokes are so classic. Oh my God. They just work so well. I mean, the whole exchange about Sally Decker and Jim Fell and filled in. I mean,
twice and once.
So good. So good.
That and Sergeant Take Her Away and Sergeant Booker as well is another great verbal gag.
The names.
Yes.
There's a plethora of name jokes in the first episode alone. Talk about constant gag throughout. And I don't remember. So I watched the first two. I don't think there are as many in the second one, but they still, place names and people names just get riffed on constantly. I watched it when it aired too, I guess on the strength of remembering Airplane. And I don't know if Airplane 2 had come out already. I think it was the same year, if I'm not mistaken.
Same year, yeah.
Which I also saw in the theater. Barely remember any of that though. But this was something that I watched with my dad, and it's one of those, like my daughter, all through Airplane, saying that is such a stupid joke. I mean, I remember him saying that. That's so stupid, while laughing. They're dumb jokes. They're groaners. They're dad jokes, whatever you want to call them, right and left. But I don't know. Like you, Mike, probably didn't catch maybe all 6. I don't really remember. I feel like when I watched the series a couple years ago, I didn't remember the last couple of episodes all that well. I know that they move things around. I know that there's controversy about the order. I think they had them in the correct order on the DVD, at least according to air date. I didn't have an opportunity to see them until who knows when, because I didn't have cable for a very long time. But by the time Naked Gun came out, I saw that on the strength of this, but it had been, 6 years or so? Yeah, so I was going, the first 4 aired the month of March in 82. So I was going from 12 to 13. We're just like prime stupid joke years in a young kid's life. Really stuck with me for decades and decades.
The whole thing of them showing out of order really kind of ruins one of the best jokes that they have, because they are constantly name checking the previous people in the end of the episode. So even in the second episode, which we'll talk about next week, there's a reference to Sally Decker. And that list is going to grow as these episodes go on, and they will keep talking about the previous criminals in the next episode, which is great. I love that they give this little thing in here. There are so many recurring gags. The one that I love the most is that we don't know for sure if Frank Drebin is a serial killer or not. I mean, even the first time we meet him, we see him in his car. He's giving his voiceover, talking about how there has been a recent wave of gorgeous fashion models found naked and unconscious in laundromats on the West Side. Unfortunately, I was investigating holdups of neighborhood credit unions. I was on the wrong side of town doing my laundry. Is he the one that's putting the fashion models unconscious and naked, or is he just hoping to catch a glimpse of the fashion models? Because then later on in the same episode, he's driving around and you see another basket of laundry next to him. I love that. I love that Frank Drebin is a total pervert.
Speaking of perverts, the character of Q in this show, who shows up in the movie, obviously, he is, boy, that's a different character than I remember. It is essentially just Peter Graves from Airplane. I mean, doing literally the same gag. There's
He's
a kid,
good.
he's talking to him, and he's like, hey, you ever seen a grown man naked? Or something to the effect of like, it's a little different because in this, it's not him being a pedophile. In this, it's just him being a creep because he's like, hey, bring your mom's clothes in, next time, or bring her bathing suit in. That's Ed Williams as Ted Olson. And his character is so different from the movie because in the movies, he's not perverted. He's no-selling all the gags. None of it's funny to him, which is fine because it's like multiple straight men in a scene. But I didn't remember him being so drastically different.
I can't remember if it's the way that the water glistens off of your mom's skin when she comes out of the shower.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it.
Bring back some swimwear next time when you come.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the Peter Graves gags all over again, which is great. I love that, actually.
It's like a mix of Airplane and what Naked Gun would become the movies. It's still kind of riding that line because they do have a lot of verbal gags. There are a fair amount of visual gags as well. I think overall, this hews closer to Airplane than it does to Naked Gun. I mean, yeah, there are jokes that are repeated, like the shooting at each other from like 2 feet away, which comes back, I want to say, in the second Naked Gun movie. And then the thing with the pillow in Naked Gun, they do that with the wig in this in this episode. It's weird to me. Like, I remember watching this when it was just kind of floating around there. It only came into DVD in 2020. So it's only been it's Blu-ray. It's only been on Blu-ray for 2 years. But I remember seeing it and thinking, like, I was not expecting when I initially watched it there to be so many repeated jokes. But yet they're all here. Everything that you've seen in Naked Gun will come back in the show because that's where they're essentially workshopping all of these ideas is on the show. But I just didn't remember how many gags that I remember from Naked Gun 1, 2, and 3 are just already showing up in the show.
Yeah, they recycle a lot of gags.
Well, they're even recycling gags here from Airplane. Cigarette?
Right.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
And I wonder, that was the thing when I watched it all the way through a couple of years back. I thought, is that a recurring gag on purpose, or is this just like recycling their own material? I mean, there's different writers for the episodes. I want to assume that everything's on purpose, but I don't know. It gets, after a while, you kind of go like, how many times am I going to laugh at the cigarette gag?
They do an Airplane gag in this halfway through it where they're driving in the car and all of a sudden the Colosseum is behind them.
Place in Little Italy.
Right. And then they're at the apartment and then you can see the Leaning Tower of Pisa out her window, though it's clearly supposed to be
Chicago?
New York? LA?
I don't know.
Yeah. The script has Chicago.
I read that. Yeah. I read it on something else too. Or no, it might have been in the commentary where they were talking about Chicago. And I'm like, I don't get a sense of anywhere in this except for Backlot.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah. It is very much set bound. And that's okay. I mean, they're not trying to convince us that Leslie Nielsen is walking around the streets of anywhere. The movie's obviously set in LA, plays a big part in those movies that it's set in LA. Here, they mention the Cubs one time. Well, tell him you was traded to the Cubs for Reggie Jackson. That scene has my favorite line in the entire episode, which is, "We would have come sooner, but your husband wasn't dead yet." When Leslie Nielsen hits those deliveries, the only way that he can, he just says it and just keeps going. Like that, you say that to someone and they would be like, "What the fuck did you just say?" But just no stopping here.
For me, MVP of this episode and a lot of episodes is Alan North as Ed Hocken. So good because he does the deadpan like Leslie Nielsen, but he plays slightly less intelligent, which I really like. That he just seems very confused a lot of times. He kind of gives that Levitt look a lot of times, just like, huh? And I love that. I love him and his approach. And I love the introduction of him in the credits with the guy on fire running out of the squad room.
The police was being shot up in the process, too.
So good.
You guys have already mentioned it, but the show sets exactly the tone that it needs the moment it starts. I mean, you see Leslie Nielsen being shot at, and you're like, okay, this is a serious show. And then the moment it hooks you, it subverts your expectations immediately. I really appreciate that this show is not really interested in hewing to the conventions of television at the time. It really wanted to do its own thing, which is why I think the three of us would agree it did not succeed. This show was way too far ahead of its time to be really appreciated at the time. And watching this first episode, what a fucking chore writing these scripts must have been. My God. Doing Airplane is one thing, but doing this weekly, like it only runs for 6 episodes, but who knows how many episodes it really would have run for if it had been able to run a full length. Because I feel like ZAZ would have A, left after a while, or B, it would have just completely diminished in quality of comedy. Because again, this is the first and only episode that they write throughout the run. I mean, there are other people, and one of them is actually a rather well-known actor in the next episode. It's interesting. This is the one that, of all the episodes that I remember this one and none of the other ones.
I am very curious how they approach this, because most of the time you do a pilot, the pilot sells, they say, okay, we'll take 13 episodes, 22 episodes, whatever it is. But this one lasting 6 episodes it comes out in March. So I'm like, okay, is this a mid-season replacement? And if that's the case, I mean, still, it's probably 13. But then I know there were 6 scripts written. There was actually a 7th script at least out there. And we'll talk about that when we get to the last episode. So it's like, okay, what were you guys doing? Did you do 6 at a time and then start writing the script for the 7th? I mean, is it more like a Kolchak thing where you're just like writing a script? You know, you've got like 3 or 4 scripts all being written at the same time and they're all getting ready to be shot at the same time, because obviously they didn't have all of this stuff shot and ready. They shot the 6th. They didn't shoot a 7th.
My question has always been, how do you keep that constant? There's not a minute that goes by on any of these where there isn't a visual, verbal, or combination of the two jokes happening. There's no stretch of time where there isn't something happening. I don't know how anybody could keep up that pace with jokes. That wasn't just a comedic genius. Not that they're not comedic geniuses. I mean, that's up to debate. I can't even imagine thinking beyond, here's your order for 6 for this mid-season replacement. We'll see what happens.
David Mish wrote the 7th script, Testimony of Terror. And his note about it was, while all the produced episodes were written by 3-person teams, and he says that he worked with Robert Wall and Tino Insana, the 7th was to be written and directed by me, meaning David Mish. We were canceled after 6. His is more of a parody of Goldfinger meets Ironside, and some of the gags actually ended up in Top Secret. Omar Sharif being crushed is a gag that's from his Testimony of Terror. So I'm so curious just about the history of this. I would love to talk with these guys and find out more information. I'm wondering if maybe I can drop a note to Joe Dante, who we'll talk about in the next episode since he directed that one. Find out a little bit more. You mentioned M Squad. So you've got the shell of things by parodying M Squad, just like how we did 0 Hour in Airplane. And then after, even in 2 episodes, it's like, okay, the case gets tough. And so then Frank goes to Johnny. And I fucking love Johnny. And I know that the gag is supposed to be that Johnny is supposed to be like the young kid who's polishing shoes and stuff, but he ends up being this really old man looking guy. He's so good. And I love the way he's always looking around furtively and giving so much more information than he could ever possibly know about any topic in the entire world. And for me, the best part of it is always who's the next person to sit in the shoeshine chair, because that is always great. And this one is what? Life After Death, right? The priest sitting down.
The priest. Mm-hmm.
So good.
I'm a huge fan of that gag. I'm surprised that gag didn't make its way into the movie. Of all these gags that I know were Constance, because I know that's a returning gag. It's wild to me that one didn't show up. Also want to point out William Duell, pretty good in Elvira, Mistress of the Dark as well, which is the only thing I can think of him being in. And he plays, I think, the horny hotel husband to the I forget what that actress, another fantastic character actress who's just like, you can't wear makeup and he's great in there. He's great in here. I wish that gag had showed up in the movie because they could have done that 3 times in the movies.
Had you bet me money, I would have said that Johnny was in the movie.
Right. Well, that's my point. It's like, that's the one gag where I'm shaking my head. Like, why didn't they? The actor was alive until 2004. Maybe they didn't think it played. I can't imagine what it is. It plays really well on TV. I think it plays really well within the framework of the episode, given what they're spoofing and what that is trying to evoke. Yeah, it's very strange to me that has no place in the movies. And there's not even like an analogous in the movies. I guess there is in the first one where he's like that whole back and forth with the guy on the dock where he's paying the guy on the dock and the guy on the dock pays him money to get the information. But that's as close as we get within the entire framework of those films. They never reapproach this joke, but they do it at least in the first 2 episodes. I think he's in every single one.
I believe it's a recurring gag.
I want to say yes, yeah.
And I'm only familiar with him from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, that's right. He's one of the patients. Yeah. Wow, I forgot all about that. Was that E.D. McClurg you were thinking of earlier, Chris?
Probably.
Okay. Sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot.
No. She is she in Elvira?
I want to say that she was part of that whole comedy club.
She plays Chastity Pariah.
Oh, that's right.
It's Pat Crawford Brown.
Thank you.
Who plays William Duell's husband. But again, like all of those 80s actresses kind of fall into the same camp, the same kind of character, always playing that uptight female character, but they do it so well, obviously. It's funny because, like you said, of all the gags in this show that really are returning in that work and that even show up on the Wikipedia page, for each of these episodes has a Wikipedia entry completely. You don't even, I mean, not saying you don't have to watch this show. You should totally track the show down. It's like $12 on Amazon. You can see a lot of the show just by reading the Wikipedia entry because they have like half of the gags just laid out for you. It's kind of insane, but I think it speaks to the quality and the kind of intricate writing of the show that even to write a synopsis of this show is an in-depth process.
You know, I think I have an answer as to why maybe he's not in the movies. It feels like with this, they did the same kind of approach as with Airplane, where it's more of a time. There are modern for the time references, like the Reggie Jackson reference, but it feels like they're hearkening back to 50s and 60s cop shows. And this would work. Johnny, the Shoeshine Boy gag, would work in a 50s or 60s cop show. If I remember correctly, and again, it's been a long time since I've watched the Naked Gun movies, but that's really contemporary. That's supposed to be set in the here and now of late 80s LA. Maybe it just doesn't work with that.
To be fair, though, wouldn't that be the the gag?
That would be the joke. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I could see it in the movie, but yeah, I think you're probably right to your point. It just doesn't, it wouldn't. Yeah. Also the city that they're setting it in the movies is LA. Like,
right. Yeah. Yeah. And this is timeless and placeless and set bound and studio bound and
rear projection. Yeah.
Very much in reference to those shows where, I mean, I didn't watch Dragnet a lot when I was younger, but I did watch Perry Mason and Ironside and trying to think of some of the other cop shows where it was very much that generic wide open set space that's prominent, and especially in this first episode in the Acme credit place that the whole action takes place in, or the main action, where it's just this wide open. Your building wouldn't be that big. And same with their police station and everything else, where it's just this huge wide open space. It doesn't quite look right to the eye, but that's how those old shows were.
It's got to be big for Norberg to fit in there.
Yeah. Or Al, you mean?
Al, sorry. I thought his name was Al Norberg.
Nordberg comes on the third or fourth episode.
Oh, really? Okay.
Nordberg is the doofus cop that comes in a little later, and I think that's what I always thought too. And I had to look at the cast lists and the Wikipedia and all that stuff to straighten that out for myself, because I'm like, is Nordberg the tall guy?
That's what I always thought.
Are we seeing his face now, or what? Is this a separate character? Because he comes in later. He's not in the first two episodes. Nordberg, the character. I just remember him mainly from the Locksmith episode, because he has a lot to do in that one.
I can now picture him. Now that you say that, I can picture the actor in my head. Yeah.
You're talking about this, the role that ends up getting replaced by
O.J. Simpson.
Everybody's favorite Hertz rental car spokesperson, O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, I was confused as well. I thought his name was Al Norberg, so my bad. So I kept waiting for the tall guy to show up in the movies. And I love that gag. And I love the gag of, you've got something on your face. No, the other side.
And it's a half of a goddamn banana.
Just thump right out. I mean, just boom. Just the landing of that banana on the table. So good. Oh.
I think my other question about, watching this show now in 2022, knowing why it gets canceled, knowing how quickly it got canceled into its run, could a show like this work? And does the show already exist? I mean, in a lot of ways, Matt Groening talks about this show and how this show would have killed if it had been on 20 years later. It would have, but I would contend Matt Groening built upon the ideas of this show with The Simpsons. I mean, yeah, The Simpsons is not a live action show, but plenty of visual and verbal gags in the early seasons of the show. Maybe not so much recently. I cannot speak to most of The Simpsons past season 13. A lot of what modern comedy becomes is due in a lot of part to not this show, but ZAZ and kind of where their influences lie and who they influence and what they're trying to do, which is never give the audience an opportunity to catch their breath. That's what it feels like. I don't know if that was their intention, but as an audience member watching this show, critically or non-critically, there's not going to be a lot of time where you're not being fucking bombarded with stuff incessantly. The show works in spite of that being a really hard sell. I feel like it's a hard sell to really be like, we're going to have a 20-minute episode of a show where you have to be engaged the entire time. That's not easy.
Yeah, I would say the closest we come to this kind of stuff for now is probably the Seth MacFarlane stuff, especially Family Guy.
Right.
But with that, you've got the way that those jokes are structured is so different from how this is, because the jokes are very much, I think you always say, Chris, they hang a lantern on them, right? Where it's like, oh, well, that reminds me of the time when blah, blah, blah. And then they have the joke.
That reminds me of the time Chris Walken went to go order Froyo at TCBY and they didn't have chocolate. It's like, wow. It's like that. And then they cut to him doing it. That's for a long time. That was all Family Guy was. And probably still is. I'd be able to wager a guess.
I mean, whatever those, what was it? Dolphins with balls with names on them that they just push into the tube and then they come out and that's how they write the jokes.
Yeah.
They
put a bunch of monkeys in a room with a bunch of time writers.
South Park, man, the way that they went after those guys. Holy shit. That was
the best
vicious.
of times. It was the blurst of times. Blurst of times. That's
stupid monkey.
That is what this feels like, that, but less reaching. Family Guy always felt like at some point it just started reaching for the jokes as opposed to letting the jokes happen organically.
Right.
And I appreciate Police Squad. Yeah, the second episode, maybe not so much, but this episode really is just every cool, funny, worthwhile gag that ZAZ has, and they pull it out of their bag for this episode. For understandable reasons, the first episode of their show. So they want to make sure it lands. That's why they directed it. That's why they wrote it. This episode in particular, I think really is start to finish very funny and also full of like a lot, like we've kind of already mentioned, a lot of gags that not only come back in this episode, but are going to resurface over and over again to, like you mentioned, Mark, a lot of diminishing returns.
Well, and this also does that thing that you were talking about, Mark, in the last episode where you're talking about the ZAZ rules of comedy. And I really was picking up on that while I was watching this whole idea of if something is funny happening in the background, don't have it funny in the foreground. So Frank and the captain speaking, and you've got the guys with the gurney wheeling out that long gurney that just keeps going and going and going. And then they cut and you see the end of the gurney inside of the building. And I love that, the conversation that Alan North and Leslie Nielsen are having isn't that funny, but that sight gag going on in the back is amazing.
Or like the opening of Act 2, where it's Act 2, Yankees won.
I like the recurring title card gags too.
Yes.
Because they're total non sequiturs. Like, that is what I love. I am a huge fan of I believe the comic panel is called Bizarro, is it not? The one that used to be in the newspaper, which was all just non sequiturs all the time. I love a good non sequitur, and ZAZ are kings of non sequiturs. There's a ton of them in Naked Gun. There's plenty of them in Airplane. And Act 2, Yankees won, is a very good example. And there's an even better one in the second episode that I think is even funnier.
Good, yes,
but
it is.
Nowadays, the comedy isn't throughout. Nobody does comedy credits anymore. We didn't even talk about that with Airplane. Comedy credits. A recipe for brownies in the credits. I think at some point in one of these ZAZ movies, we get it. It may be as far down the road as something like Mafia. Nobody does that anymore. That's not a thing anybody does. It's comedy from start to finish. You're eating a salad and the salad is funny, and then the appetizer is funny, and then the main course is funny, and the dessert is funny. It's throughout. That's not a thing anymore. Everybody wants to have, a moment of character growth and a moment of characters having a triumph. It's like, why can't we just do this anymore? Why can't we just do a joke fest throughout? Naked Gun coming soon to a theater near you, starring Liam Neeson. There you go, folks. I forgot.
Now it's all improv until you find something that you can put on the screen. You hear riff for 20 minutes, and then we'll cut it all together. The Paul Feig and Judd Apatow.
Yeah.
That's what we've come to.
Well, in ZAZ recently, we're talking about, not stupid opinions. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but, the death of comedy, blah, blah, blah. I would contend the death of comedy is not wokeness. The death of comedy is improv. That's the death of comedy movies, is not writing the jokes and confidence in writing the jokes. It's, we're going to have funny people and they say funny things. That's not necessarily the case. Ghostbusters 2016 is a fantastic example of what happens when you go, we got 4 funny women. Let's just let them do their thing.
Let them riff.
Everything is written down. This script is everything that we see is in here. It's very important to write this shit down, get this script as tight as you possibly can. You want to let people riff on set. You do one take that's of the script. You do another that's for you. You go ahead and you riff. If you're fucking Robin Williams, go ahead. It might be something genius. I'm not saying that the level of comedian is not up to what it was, but I think the level of comedy is not to what it was. And it's just like, okay, you don't have to say queef jokes all the time. It's okay.
It's a different way of writing comedy. This was 3 dudes at the helm, very structured. They knew what they want. They knew how they wanted to get there. And like with Airplane, they're showing these movies to people and they're using that as an opportunity to tune and take the movie and tweak it down into what they want. Now we're going to do it on set. And it's like, okay, like I guess that is a way of doing it. And there have been movies that have been successful. A lot of those Judd Apatow movies are very funny. Rewatchable? I don't know. Again, there are parts from 40-Year-Old Virgin that I can quote that are funny. Okay, there are parts in Police Squad that are just as funny. It's a different kind of comedy. I think this comedy has been around for a lot longer. And this comedy also benefits from people sitting and looking over it a bunch of times. It's not just one guy doing his thing, which is fine. That works for stand-up. Not for a comedy movie, I don't think. Not all the time. Not emulatably, I'm going to take 4 people who are funny and put them in the movie, guaranteed success. Not necessarily. And Leslie Nielsen was a comedic actor before any of this. That's not what he was doing. He wanted to. That's what they've said. That's what he said. I wanted to do comedy. He would play jokes on people on set. Whatever the fuck that means anymore. You're sending condoms to Robert Stack on the set of Airplane, a used condom like Jared Leto. I don't know what the fuck he was doing. But it's funny to me that I would assume a lot of the people in this show are not comedic actors. I mean, that's not the point. It's not about you being funny. It's about the script being funny. That's the difference now. It's not the actors that are funny. It's the script. Now it's the actors, not the script. Because with improv, there is no script. Cool.
How do you even sell the project?
Oh, you got Kate McKinnon and Kristen Wiig and Leslie Jones and that other actress whose name I always get wrong. So I'm going to say her name is Melissa McCarthy.
I think you're right.
That's how you sell it. And we got Paul Feig, and he's a comedy guy, so he gets it. It's like, yikes. Sometimes it does work, but it's a harder hill to climb than just writing a script and having them execute your funny lines.
These are still played straight. The Police Squad episodes are all still, no one's telling jokes.
There's no laugh track.
No.
They fought against that.
Which I think if there had been a laugh track, this show would not work nearly as well as it still does.
Oh, God. Can you imagine?
If you want a laugh track, just listen to them on the audio commentary, and there's your laugh track, because they laugh at their own jokes quite a bit. I don't blame them. They're pretty funny. So
yeah,
improv thing has become like the gold standard. Mm-hmm. And it's not even really improv because you're recording something. So you can do it a million times. Improv on stage and what we call improv for movies or TV shows is really just like testing things out.
Unless it really is improv. Some of the best moments of improv in film are not even comedic movies. The thing that jumps to my mind, not a huge fan of the movie, not a huge fan of the director, not even a huge fan of the actor involved. The scene in Django where Leonardo DiCaprio actually cut his hand and he went through the rest of the scene. That's improv. That's improvisational acting. He is sitting there with his hand fucking bleeding like crazy, getting through that scene. The scene in Zoolander where Ben Stiller legitimately forgot his line after David Duchovny's monologue and goes, "But why male models?" That's improv. It's an accident. He didn't mean to, but why male models? And then David Duchovny just picking up and going, "I just told you." That's all improv. That wasn't them doing it a million times. It came out of necessity. And that for me is when improv works, is when it comes out of necessity, not that's all you've got. Would Naked Gun work in a improv only comedy sphere?
It's not a totally modern thing because I remember watching Grumpy Old Men, and at the end of the film, I believe it's running through the credits, they have Burgess Meredith giving alternative lines to some of his crass jokes in the movie. It's different every take. To me, that's sort of what they're doing now in these movies. Like for every fucking line, it's like insert funny line here.
Even all the way, back to like Die Hard and stuff. I know Stephen Lee D'Souza was on set just feeding lines to Bruce Willis, and he would say a bunch of stuff and they would record him. But at the same time, the script existed before that. And then it's a matter of like picking the best line. So I don't fault that. But the one that really gets me though is when the comedian will think that they have a funny line and then they'll do 2 or 3 more funny lines and the scene lasts for way too long. And I get that a lot in things like 21 Jump Street or some of these Paul Feig movies where it's just like, okay, 1 joke was enough. You don't have to have 3 jokes. In this, you tell 1 joke, you move on to the next joke, you move on to the next joke. Sometimes you come back to that first joke if you need to or want to have that little callback, but it is not just layer. The first one was funny. The second one was kind of dumb. The third one was absurd. Yeah, no, we don't need that.
For me, that kind of comedy sometimes does work. It's a very specific scenario. And not only is it a specific scenario, it's a specific kind of comedian. If it's Tim Heidecker and Eric Wareheim or Eric Andre, someone who understands comedy and anti-comedy, even someone like Tim Robinson on I Think You Should Leave, playing it 3 times, as long as there's a point in that third time, I'm on board. But yeah, it's this like beating it into the ground and then beating it further. And then now it's like dead. It's buried. Stop beating it. It's dead already. Now you gotta stop. And a lot of this improv nowadays is just how much further can we push the joke? I don't think you need to push it in this scene. You can revisit it. Revisiting jokes is great. ZAZ are like the fucking kings of that, for fuck's sake. Yeah, it's like in the same scene right next to the previous jokes. Like, this is a little much. Like, do you not have anything else to say? You have any other jokes to trot out here? You just want to say the same thing 3 times? All right.
I kind of mentioned that on the airplane episode where it's like that Austin Powers thing where you go so far it's become absurd, and then at some point it's supposed to be funny again. That was the comedy thing for a while, and that's when I sort of stopped watching a lot of comedy films. I guess it's Saturday Night Live type humor in a way where that works in a sketch, but you're talking about a movie here. A 5-minute sketch versus 5 minutes of your movie is a different ballgame as far as I'm concerned.
Taking Pat and stretching Pat to 1 hour and a half long movie is a good idea.
Tarantino had to pass that script, so he punched it up.
He's a funny guy, I've heard.
Yeah. A lot of comedy in his movies. Shit.
I have to give this show credit for having an Elephant Man gag in it.
Yes.
The most timeless of all gags, Elephant Man.
So good. I'm like, would people watching it now who aren't our ages, would they get it? You know, I'm not sure, but God damn it, it's funny.
I watched a reaction video earlier today as part of my research.
Oh boy.
Of a couple watching the first 3 episodes, although they watched them out of order. The 3rd episode and the 5th episode are switched, blah, blah, blah. But the first 2 were the correct ones that we were going to be talking about. That was the gag that they both missed. There was no reaction other than the spit and stuff coming out of his mouth. Yeah, they didn't catch it. And they were probably Chris's age, I would guess, maybe.
How dare you lump me in with the rest of these people? I have a little hunch that you don't know what you're talking about. And here's the little hunch.
That little guy.
That is the kind of dumb fucking gag that I appreciate.
I love it. Oh my God.
That, and I think this is the first time that I have caught this joke, is when he leans over like he's talking into an intercom.
That's the joke I thought you were talking about.
Chris is talking about the joke with the hunchback
at the end.
At the end, when they're doing right after they do the take her away.
And here he is, right here. I love that.
The one I'm talking about is in the police station, and Frank leans over like he's pressing the intercom button and gives out these orders, and then they cut to
right away, Captain.
Yeah, to the little person. I'm like, I have never noticed that joke before. That was brilliant. I love that. So that got a big laugh out of my daughter too.
I appreciate the fact that it's just, they don't leave a moment without a joke. The scene where you have Drebin talking to Sally Decker on the phone, and he calls her and he puts the handkerchief over the phone. You don't know where this joke is going. And then they cut to her and it's just a completely different voice. But they don't make it, they make no light of it, nothing. They don't have her freaking out or anything. And it's stuff like that where it's like the people who were writing this show understand that you have an opportunity at every point to tell a joke. Sometimes you don't need to, but in a show like this, it's almost like they can't help themselves. And I appreciate that. It's like they're going to say a little hunch, and oh my God, here comes a hunchback, or Sergeant Take Her Away. It's like, that is his name. When it's this kind of show, that's what I expect. And they always, at least in this episode and in Airplane, and a lot in the original Naked Gun movie, they always have this innate ability to deliver.
Well, and when he does that, it's the exact replica of the orthodontist's voice.
Right.
So he sounds exactly like the orthodontist, who is apparently ADR'd, and the only person that's ADR'd in the show. That's what they said in the commentary. They're like, he's looped. No one else was in that scene.
I like that his last name is the same as Leslie Nielsen's name, the doctor in Airplane. And I think that name, what is it, Zuftig or something?
Zubitsky or
Zubitsky, that was one of their neighbors when they're growing up.
Okay, I thought it was from Airplane, and I just didn't have the energy to look it up. And so it was his name. Okay, well, that's even better.
Having watched these two things back to back, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Stuff starts to fall into place. I read in the trivia that translates to Tooth Man. I don't necessarily buy that. So
that would be
too good.
Providential, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. So much bullshit on IMDb.
I don't know. IMDb is a great place to get all of your trivia.
And stuff that you definitely want to read out loud on a podcast and claim that it is the gospel truth.
It's true. Yeah. I'm kind of surprised throughout this entire time that we've been talking about this first episode of the show, we have not mentioned one of the more, I guess, iconic gags, reoccurring iconic gags. The one that I've seen out of context the most is the freeze frame gag at the end.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we'll get to that.
Which is just so fucking stupid. And then not only is it stupid in this episode, stupidly hilarious. I mean, not, oh my God, eye roll, but it's stupid and it works. And then they up the ante in the next episode to the logical next degree. The freeze frame gag at the end is great. You have Frank Drebin and Ed sitting there laughing, and then they freeze. And then Alan North is the one who starts breaking first.
Yeah.
And he starts just like looking around.
Doing his mouth.
Yeah.
He can't hold it as long as Leslie Nielsen. And obviously, I'm sure they were like, you guys need to start like getting sick of it the longer this goes on. But kudos to Leslie Nielsen for holding it so unbelievably long without ever blinking or anything. And man, honestly, it, as much as I love some of the verbal gags, it might be my favorite visual gag in the entire run of this show, because I like that they just go, well, nobody's really explained why anyone does this, so we're just going to have them have no idea why this is happening, which I think is just a funny kind of like metatextual gag on top of everything else, because it only is funny if you know what they're trying to make fun of. Otherwise, I mean, yeah, it's funny that they're frozen. You really do have to have some frame of reference for some of these TV specific gags, at least TV at the time.
Oh, God. Yeah. There was an amazing video that I saw years ago where it was every beat before and then freeze frame of the end of Chips. So just that like little like, ha ha. And then like off to the next one. And it was just over and over and over again.
In a show that we talk about weekly or monthly, they do it. They do it in Barney Miller every time. Straight. It's every episode of Barney Miller has it.
Columbo's got all those stills at the end. They don't do the freeze at the end, but yeah, there's definitely that.
We watch a lot of Murder, She Wrote in this house, and they end every episode like that. And every time they do, what do I think of? Police Squad. Yeah. Every fucking time.
Seeing them do that has changed the way I see those scenes now, which, like you just mentioned, Mark, I have to give entire credit to that to ZAZ, because I've seen people do it since, but never have I seen it done as well as I've seen it done in this first episode of this show. And then definitely in the next episode, it is even funnier, which to end your show with a really standout gag, got to give them credit for waiting until the last moment to do it. But then the fact that they nail it again in the next episode is a testament to the people writing this show and the expectations that they clearly had for not only themselves, but also the people that they're going to be bringing on to work on this show, because this is the only episode that they have writing credits on.
And directing, did they direct any of the other episodes as well?
Just this one. Credit-wise, they only wrote and directed ZAZ this first episode.
There's another sight gag in here that I think maybe got riffed on years later on another comedy show. And it's one that I've never noticed before, but it's the military millinery that he meets Sally Decker in front of.
No,
it's like army hats, and then it says military millinery, and it's very hard to say. And when I saw it and I tried to say it in my head, all I could think of was Rural Juror from 30 Rock. I don't know if they they pulled it from that or not.
That all-night wicker store.
Yeah.
All the people coming out with their wicker furniture.
That's the one gag I don't get at all. Like, I don't understand why it's a wicker store and why it's a 24-hour wicker store.
It makes no sense. That's
Pier
why.
1 Imports existed in 1970.
Maybe that's the reference.
That's why Was Pier 1 Imports open all the time?
I don't think so.
No, who would need wicker furniture and who would need it 24 hours a day? It's like Spatula City, you know?
Spatula City. Spatula City.
And who would need a wicker TV?
Right. So good.
There's so much that even y'all who've seen the show however many times, watched them when it came out, still spotting sight gags. Like, I can't think of a lot of comedies that even have come out in the last 10 to 15 years where I'm like, I would rewatch it and see something new or notice something else.
Much as 40 years ago.
This is a lost art. It really is. Like, and people really did try with, like we mentioned, Epic Movie and Disaster Movie and whatever fucking iterations of those there are. But even this television show, this 20-minute episode is better than most of the parody movies that came out post Scary Movie 3. Or you could even say post Scary Movie 1. It's surprising how well this still holds up 40 plus years later.
So on our next episode, we're going to be talking about the episode of Police Squad called Ring of Fear. Until then, Chris, what is happening with you, my friend?
WeirdingWayMedia.com is what's happening with me. That's where you can find this show, my shows, Mike's show, Mark's show, everybody's shows. WeirdingWayMedia.com. What about you, Mark?
I mean, do we need to say any more than that?
I don't think we need it. I think we're done. I think cut to Chris. He talks us out, and we're all right. We'll see you next week.
We should freeze frame ourselves, but this is an audio medium, so we can't do that.
It's just us breathing for 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's not weird. It was like the fucking, all of a sudden, it's like you're listening to a Zodiac phone call.
Tune in next week for another exciting story from the files of Police Squad.
If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror. We'll cover all the subgenres, so join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.